Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Classics 5 and Governor Cuomo's 2014-15 executive budget presentation. It's an honor to have the governor with us this morning, and it's a pleasure to have all of you. This is the governor's fourth budget presentation, and it's remarkable to me and to all of us to think how far we've come since 2011. In 3 years, the state has transformed a $10 billion deficit into a $2 billion surplus and created nearly 400,000 new private sector jobs. The progress we have made and seen in the past 3 years has led to a significant transformation of the state's business climate. State government is now actively working to help businesses grow and help businesses stay in New York State. It used to be that our business community had no voice in state government. Today we have a state government and a governor that actively partners with us, hearing our opinions, hearing our concerns, and creating and nurturing an environment where businesses can grow and thrive. Today the state is making critical investments that boost the private sector and grow our economy. From the creation of the new $100 million Genome Center to the transformation of Riverbend, to a high-tech manufacturing center, to today's exciting news, bringing hundreds of jobs to Western New York. Our region's economy is finally moving out of the past and entering into a new and bright future. This year, the governor's budget includes even more investments in our economy, which means more jobs for Western New Yorkers and more opportunity for our businesses. It includes a huge boost to businesses in our areas with a proposal to bring upstate manufacturers' tax rate to zero. The old Albany couldn't pass tax hikes on businesses fast enough. Today, this governor is bringing taxes on upstate businesses to the lowest level possible, literally to zero. The governor is no stranger to Western New York. He's invested in this community, had faith in its potential, and now, thanks to the progress of the last 3 years, we are on a real comeback. I am so excited to have the governor in Amherst, a big hub in the Western New York community. Amherst takes very seriously our commitment to Western New York and our urban core, the city of Buffalo. People often ask me why the governor comes so much. In my position, I've had an opportunity to meet other governors. Other governors came to Western New York, listened, and went back and did whatever they do in Albany. Governor Cuomo listens, goes back, does stuff for Western New York, and continues to come back, offering us opportunity. There are others joining us in the audience today that I would like to acknowledge. Our good friend, Congressman Brian Higgins. Our county executive, Mark Kolenkars. Our mayor, Byron Brown. District Attorney, Frank Sedita. Comptroller, Mark Schroeder. County Clerk, Chris Jacobs. Erie County Legislator, Tommy Loughran. Council member from the town of Amherst, Mark Manna. The president of our wonderful University of Buffalo, Satish Tripathi. We have other friends from government here today, and I want to thank you for joining us. We also have a very special guest, Michael Cadigan, who's the general manager of IBM Microelectronic Systems and Technology Group. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Cadigan before I came out here, and I don't want to spoil the governor's great surprise, but I want to thank you so much, Mr. Cadigan, for your belief in support and faith in Western New York. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our New York State Assemblyman, Ray Walter.
Great job. Thank you, everybody, and good afternoon to you all. First, let me recognize my colleague from the State Assembly, Sean Ryan, is here with us today. Thanks, Sean. Welcome to the 146th District. It's great to have the governor back here in Western New York. In the last 3 years, the nature of state government has fundamentally changed. For years, Albany was the capital of gridlock. It even made modern-day Washington look normal. Sorry, Congressman. You're accepted from that comment, I'm sure. But today we're working together across party lines to take long-needed steps to build a better New York. We've controlled spending and passed on-time budgets, not once, not twice, but 3 years in a row, and I bet we can get 4 in there. We've passed the state's first ever property tax cap to make living in New York more affordable for families. We've been able to support local businesses here in the region through the Western New York Regional Economic Development Council, which has secured hundreds of millions of dollars for projects that boost the private sector and bring new jobs and investments. The new approach is working. After decades of stagnation, business and jobs are coming back to our region. Together with Governor Cuomo, we've brought back the New York pride, and we are building a better future for Western New York. Without further ado, it's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague from the state legislature and former colleague from the Erie County legislature, Tim Kennedy.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Assemblyman Welter. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'd like to first acknowledge my colleagues from the New York State Senate, Senator Mark Grisanti, as well as Senator George Maziarz. Once again, it is great to have Governor Cuomo here with us in Western New York, once again bringing more good news to our community. As you heard from the Assemblyman, we've had 3 consecutive on-time budgets, and spending and taxes have been kept in control or reduced. Now is the time we move forward and make major investments in the future of our state. And based on the state of the state and budget proposals for the year, I know Governor Cuomo is right there with us. Once again, there's a real focus on Western New York with the establishment of a $100 million genome center in Buffalo. With projects like this from the Buffalo Billion, the state is investing in emerging industries to empower Buffalo and Western New York to drive new discovery that will create jobs. This will foster sustained economic growth, establishing Buffalo as the place to invest and build new businesses in growing fields like medical innovation and clean technology. This year's agenda also includes a new focus on our children, including proposals that will transform our schools and greatly improve the learning environment for students of all ages. Starting an education early can have tremendous benefits for all of our children. And the governor wants to make that a reality by funding universal pre-K statewide in every single school district. Every child, no matter where they're from in New York State, deserves full-day pre-K. And we want to make sure that the children of Buffalo and upstate New York are not left out. He has also proposed a $2 billion bond act to boost and use and availability of technology in our schools, because the fact is that too many children are not being educated with state-of-the-art resources, and in today's high-tech world, access can mean all the difference in the world. As you can see from Governor Cuomo's budget, this year is shaping up to be a very exciting one for us here in Western New York and all across New York State. With that, I'd like to introduce a leader who's been focused on reviving upstate New York's economy with a special focus on Buffalo and Western New York. I'm proud to call him a partner in government, and even prouder to call him our governor. Please join me in welcoming Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. It's truly my pleasure to be back in Buffalo. First, to Colleen DiPiero from the Amherst Chamber of Commerce. Let's give her a round of applause for being the host, being so kind to us. Thank you very much. We have a number of distinguished officials here, but Michael Cadigan from IBM is very important to be here today. He's a great IBM official. He is also a native of Western New York. He's also a UB alum, so he knows how great Buffalo is in Western New York. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much. We have our great County Executive Mark Poloncarz and our great Mayor Byron Brown. Let's give them a round of applause. We have our really great Congressman Brian Higgins, who is a little, he is a little envious of state government now that he's in Washington. We just want you to know, Brian, you're always welcome back whenever you want. Give the Congressman a round of applause. And to Ray Walter and Tim Kennedy, my colleagues from Albany and all the other colleagues who are here from the Assembly and the Senate. I want to thank them very much for their kind words, but more than that, I want to thank them for a new spirit in Albany. You know, Albany was gridlocked before Washington was gridlocked, and we went through a lot of years where the state government just wasn't working. We weren't getting things done. And we sat down 3 years ago and we said we have to find a different way, and we did. And we started to treat each other like professionals. And we started with a different fundamental premise, which we said, look, we may be Democrats, we may be Republicans, we're this, we're that. We're New Yorkers first. And let's act like New Yorkers and put the politics at the door and do the right thing for the people of the state once we're actually doing government work. And that's what we've done. And we've made this state a better state over the past 3 years. And I want to thank them for their professionalism. Let's give them a round of applause. Colleen said they ask, why does the governor go to Buffalo so often? Which is true. Why? And it's been, I come so often that they pose the question, and you know how nasty they can be. So there has to be some nefarious reason why I go to Buffalo so often. Maybe he's looking for a position on the Buffalo Bills. Maybe he has a girlfriend. That's why he's going to Buffalo. No, I am going to Buffalo all the time because, first of all, I love Buffalo. Second of all, Buffalo hasn't gotten the help and the partnership from the state government that it deserved. It hasn't gotten that partnership for a long, long time, and I want to make it right. And my colleagues want to make it right, and that's why we're here. Also give a big round of applause to District Attorney Sedita, who's here. Pleasure to be with you, District Attorney. And our great city controller, a good friend of mine. Thank you. Pleasure to be with you. Today I want to talk about the budget for the state. The budget is important because after all the speeches are done, State of the State is done, all the legislative speeches are done, the budget is actually where the rubber hits the road. The budget has the numbers and the priorities and where you're putting the money. And that's what really drives the discussion. We're also down to a critical period where the state should adopt the budget by April 1, which means these next few weeks are truly going to be critical. So these issues and the decisions we make over these next few days really will be the pattern for the state over the next few years. We say this executive budget is building on success because the past 3 years have been good. And we've made progress every year for the past 3 years. Priority for the budget, it's about jobs. Well, it sounds simple. It's about jobs are everything. If we're creating jobs, people have a reason to stay here. If we're creating jobs, people have hope. If we're creating jobs, there's a tax base for the mayor. If we're creating jobs, there's a tax base for the county. Jobs are everything. Getting that economy running is everything. And once the economy is running, you can do a lot of good on everything all across the board. There's a very famous quote, New York State has no future as the tax capital of the nation. Any political scientists in the room know whose quote that is? It's mine. Why are taxes so high in the state of New York? Because we spend too much money. Why am I putting on weight? Because I take in too many calories. It's very simple. Tough to do in implementation, but the concept is simple. Well, then how do you cut taxes? Then you have to reduce government spending. This chart tells you the story of the state of New York over the past 50 years. The state of New York spent more money than the people in the state actually made. Okay? I have 3 teenage girls. I'm working on Economics 101. You can't spend more than you make. That's the concept. You earn money and you can spend that money, but you cannot spend more money than you make. That's the basic economic rule. Unless you're the state of New York. If you're the state of New York, you can spend at a rate higher than the income growth among the people in this state. So over 50 years, 6.8% growth, higher than income, higher than inflation. And this happened despite political differences. In other words, Democrats will say, well, if it was only a Republican, then everything. If a Republican would say, well, if it was only a Democrat, then everything would be great. 50 years, you've had every combination you can imagine. You've had Republican governors, Democratic governors, Republican Senate, Democratic Senate. The situation remained exactly the same. And what happens when you spend too much money? Government raises taxes, and people and businesses leave. We've been talking about the mobility that businesses have and the mobility that people have. And at one point, they will leave. They leave to find a job. They leave to follow a job. They leave because they can't afford the property taxes, but they will leave, and they have been. During my administration, we actually reduced spending, and we did it dramatically. This is the average rates of spending. Governor Nelson Rockefeller, 11% average rate of spending over his term. M. Cuomo, not to be confused with A. Cuomo. These are different people, M. Cuomo and A. Cuomo. M. Cuomo, as a matter of full disclosure, if there's anyone who doesn't know it, is my father. Mario Cuomo, 6.9% over his tenure. George Pataki, 5.2. 0.9% has been our average rate of spending. That's how that's making a difference. And when you reduce spending, then it actually allows you to reduce taxes, and we did. We cut taxes for every New Yorker in the state of New York, period. Every New Yorker pays lower taxes today than they did three years ago before I was elected. And that's true in every income tax bracket all across the state. For the middle class, up to $300,000, the tax rate is the lowest it has been in 60 years, believe it or not, the state income tax rate. And when you do all those things together, when you cut government spending, you cut taxes, you increase the economic growth, you reduce the size of government, then you can reduce the deficit. 3 years ago, we had a $10 billion deficit, one of the highest deficits in the history of the state of New York. That was the deficit my first year. 3 years later, we've gone from a $10 billion deficit to a $2 billion surplus. The accountant said it was impossible to have that kind of financial turnaround that quickly, but we did. Our goal for this year is to keep doing the same thing that we've been doing, statewide, to reduce taxes, because that's our number one step in our economic development strategy. This budget recognizes that when you cut taxes, you actually stimulate the private sector economy. And you cut taxes and you can actually make more money because the businesses are stimulated and they pay more in revenues. We cut personal income taxes the past 2 years. This year we want to focus on corporate income tax, which will make a big difference for small business, 7.1 to 6.5, a manufacturer's property tax credit, because our property taxes are truly the worst issue we have, a renter's tax credit, and a circuit breaker for property tax relief for low-income and middle-income homeowners. We want, for upstate manufacturers, we want to cut the corporate tax rate to zero. So you make all of upstate New York a tax-free zone for manufacturers to really give a boost to upstate New York. For homeowners, we want to freeze property taxes, because the worst tax in the state is the property tax. It's not the income tax. We reduced it, but it's not the income tax. It's the property tax. And when you hear people complain about taxes in New York, they're talking about the property tax. We raise about $50 billion a year from the property tax, $40 billion from the personal income tax. Our problem is the property tax, and it has been for a long time. No matter how you look at it, We have the highest property taxes in the United States of America. It's not just bad within the state, it's bad across the country. Westchester, New York, highest property taxes in the country. Nassau County, number 2, just in terms of absolute dollars. When you look at property taxes as a percentage of home value, 12 of the 15 highest taxed counties in the country, all upstate New York. All upstate New York as a percentage of home value. This, my friend, is what has been driving people out of this state, and businesses out of this state for the same reason. Businesses pay more in property taxes than they do in income taxes. Why do we have such high property taxes? Because we have a lot of government. Not only do we have big government, we just have a lot of government. 10,500 governments. I don't care how much we limit the growth of governments. When you have that many, if they're growing at a point, 2 points, 3 points a year, it is truly unsustainable. So we structurally have to do something about the 10,500 governments. Our idea is this: we will freeze property taxes for homeowners, which will be the first time in probably modern political history that your property taxes don't go up. The state will give you credit. The state will give a tax credit to the homeowner for any increase in the property taxes for the next 2 years, with 2 conditions. And the conditions are on the local governments. First, they have to stay within the 2% property tax cap. Second, they have to give us a plan on how they're going to work with the surrounding governments to reduce structural costs. So, we're saying to the local governments, you have to find a way to work amongst yourselves so we get the costs down. Consolidations can be considered, or what they call shared services. Not every local government has to do everything. And I know the political process is everybody wants to do everything, right? Size matters in government. More employees, that's how the political system works. I get it. We can't afford it anymore. And the local governments are going to have to find a way to do business in a different way. Erie County, for example, 1,000 local governments in Erie County. $1.6 billion just in tax levy costs. Now, people say, well, I like the town I live in, I like this city. I understand that. 3 cities, 25 towns, 15 villages, 29 school districts, 144 drainage districts. Can't we find ways